I'll return to you, and we will settle down. Oh, my blue-eyed one, don't make me turn around.
Well, this afternoon we're here in Fulford. Fulford's a suburb of York now, like a number of the places we've looked at. But as a suburb, it sits on a very important routeway into the city. It's an ancient routeway. It's certainly on the Roman route into York, and that routeway is now the A19, and it connects up Fulford, which sits right on the edge of the city of York today, and it connects it up with Fishergate, which sits by the city walls, and then lying in between is a barracks which have some significance. So. And then the memorial sat right next to the road. And I'm with Chris Ranger today. Chris is a local historian who's also part of a very thriving local history group who've done a lot of work on the memorial here, looking both at the memorial and the people who are on there. And that's been very interesting for us because it gives us a bit of an idea of some of the demographics of where people were coming from who are on the memorial, because it covers people not just from Fulford, doesn't it?
Yes, right, yes. We've in fact been producing these publications. We started off with Fulford, where we wrote one of these booklets about the lives of the men, their families, where they lived and what their association was with Fulford. There was 26 of those, but actually there's 86 men named on the memorial. Nice. And all the rest are from outside the village of Fulford. They're in the Fishergate area, particularly near the barracks. Oh, okay. We found the drawings for the monument. It was designed by Walter Brierley, the great York architect who built all the fabulous schools around the city. In I'd say a sort of fairly safe but arts and craftsy style. It's got a Celtic wheel head cross on the top. The date is in an arts and crafts style. It's got some nice rope work down each side of it. Interestingly, the drawing he did for it, either him or one of his staff, it shows the height and it only shows the names on the front of the memorial, but actually there are another 7, I think it is, on the side. Now they're not the WXYZs, they're not the last ones of the alphabet, so they must have been people that they didn't have room to fit within the original monument, or that maybe local people came along and said, hey, you haven't got my father or my uncle on the monument, we'd like it to be there, so they've added these extra names. There's also, I think it's 42 names from the Second World War.
Oh yeah, so there's that addition as well, because obviously it was, although built for the First World War and opened in 1920, wasn't it?
1920, yes. Yeah. Yes, the Archbishop came and held a ceremony here and gave a sermon as well. Yeah.
So there's a bit of continuity there, and of course it's still used today. We can see today that it's had recently laid wreaths there, and so it's still part of the community, even if it's probably not noticed all the time, apart from this time of year.
Well, it's very prominent. It was designed to be prominent. Brierley's drawing included a map showing the position of it right in front of the main door of the church. So it's close to the road. So it's designed to be seen and recognised by the community. Talking about the names on the monument as well, the first 2 names are 2 brothers, the Addy brothers. And then mentioning the Second World War, the first name on the list of Second World War names is another Addy. So there's a big sacrifice going on. Those were people from the Alma Terrace area.
One of the things from an archaeological point of view that's very interesting is how the monument sits in the space that there is. And I've already mentioned that it's on this road, on a routeway in and out of town that presumably could be used by the military as almost a processual routeway, and have you had some evidence of them doing that?
Yes. In our research, we found lots of photographs of parades. Not just Military Sunday, which was inaugurated in the, I think it's the turn of the century, I can't remember the exact date, which was an annual event that had huge crowds. People came in from the countryside to see these military parades. But they seem to have parades for all sorts of things. The barracks were open at the turn of the 1900s. They were open on a Sunday for the public to go into, and there's a lovely picture of the hussars marching to church with a small boy running along next to them. These parades, they had funerals for people, and the bands would turn out, and the hussars in their uniforms. So people living, especially imagine small boys growing up in the area, the military and the glamour of uniforms and brass bands were part of their lives. So it's not surprising that quite a few of them joined up very early on, and unfortunately the early people in the army were very badly damaged by the advancing German troops.
Yeah, and actually, of course, your work where you've looked at the people, which many groups have done using genealogical interest and things, but you've also shown how those who are commemorated were distributed in the community. So it's nice to be able to produce a map and say where did people come from, and that's been interesting, hasn't it?
Yes, and that map is it's heartbreaking really when you see it. And soldiers lived in the terraces around as well as in the barracks, and there were 10 men killed from Francis Street. It's only got 100 houses in it, so that's 1 in 10. And you think of how many would have been injured, how many would have been in the army abroad, and people must have been horrified when the telegraph boy appeared at the top of the road. Which house is he going to go to today? The other interesting thing we found is that there doesn't seem to be any suggestion of a PALS regiment or men joining up as a bunch together. And they're spread across all sorts of regiments, all sorts of services, from a 15-year-old boy who was on a trawler, an armoured trawler, was sunk, right through to people men in Mesopotamia and the Dardanelles.
So by looking at your monument, you've actually been able to show that it's not only the communities which we associate with PALS regiments that were torn apart, but actually other communities that may have been serving in different places, but the effect is the same. When there's lots of people with a military background in one place, it tears the heart out of the community. It
must have been awful, yes. One of the other things we found with our research was photographs of so-called victory party events in some of the terraces around Fishergate. And one of them's got a lovely collection of small children, babies to 2 years old, must have been conceived during the war. And one of our members, his mother and his grandmother are on that photograph. And some of them are in fancy dress as well, so they're having a party. But there's hardly any men. Now, this was probably 1919 at the time of the Paris Peace Conference when that was signed, and the peace was finally settled, if you like. And so maybe the men weren't back, or maybe they were at work. It was during the day. We don't know, but they were probably sombre affairs where people were trying their best to be cheerful after suffering so much, and so many of those mothers and children might not have had fathers.